Hello Horror Hounds, welcome back to the long overdue A to Z of horror, and we are at O for Oh My God, It's Robert Loggia. And I've chosen, there's a niche Family Guy reference for you, The Orphanage. At this point in my A to Z videos, I always direct you towards the wellspring, the inspiration for this entire series of videos, which is Jambo Shango and Randy Mole's own A to Z of horror, and I will link in the description field below to their entry for O, which is It's The Orphanage. For the first time, we've doubled up, and I will urge you to watch it. What's key, I think, is that they've reviewed The Orphanage after seeing it for the first time, and I'll be talking about it after seeing it for the second time. I don't know why I put that mysterious ooh. The Orphanage is a 2007 Spanish horror film, and whilst it's more well known to us for the fact that it's presented by Guillermo del Toro, it's the debut feature film of Spanish filmmaker Juan Antonio Bayona, and what a cracking job he does. The script was written by Sergio G. Sanchez, and he cites such literary influences as The Turn of the Screw and Peter Pan, whilst Bayona asked his cinematographer to watch The Innocents and, I believe, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. This is absolutely a film that knows what its heritage is, knows where it comes from, knows what it's trying to do, and does it pretty much immaculately. The film tells the story of Laura, who as a young girl was raised in the orphanage of the title, and 30 years later she returns with her husband Carlos and their young son Simon, or Simon, having bought the orphanage with a view to making it a home for sick and disabled children. On the day of the grand opening, Simon disappears. This is after much talk from him of having made lots of new imaginary playmates at the orphanage. This is a ghost story through and through, and perhaps the way to finding Simon is through unravelling what has happened to the ghostly children from the orphanage's past. It's got an incredibly similar setup to James Herbert's novel The Secret of Crickley Hall, which was published the year before in 2006, although I'm not calling foul play at all, because according to Wikipedia, the film's script by Sergio Sanchez was written in 1966 and was swimming around and brought to the attention of Bayona in 2004. Like I said earlier, this has some very fundamentally, almost universal building blocks to it. You will have seen aspects of this in films like Poltergeist, the missing child and the seance to try and reach them, the mother believing that the child is missing and not dead. In The Secret of Crickley Hall, again, there's a missing child at play and a mother who makes contact in a new place with what she comes to believe are the ghosts of children who used to live there. If you haven't watched The Orphanage and you like a really good ghost story, stop watching this, find out as little as possible as you can about The Orphanage and go and check it out. The first time you watch The Orphanage, it will, especially if you're in the right mood for a ghost story, scare the absolute pants off you. You can check out Jambo and Randy's video and their reaction fresh right after having seen it for the first time. That reaction is genuine. It is exactly the same reaction I had the first time I watched it. Bayona is so adept at ratcheting up the tension and releasing it. Not necessarily with jump scares. They're closely aligned to jump scares, but I would say it's more sort of building and release, sudden release of tension. However, I recently rewatched The Orphanage, and whilst I will take away absolutely none of the kudos given to it for the way it's expertly filmed, scripted, acted, edited, shot, it's gorgeous, it does still exactly what it's supposed to do, I would place it in a category with films like The Others and The Sixth Sense that I would suggest the resolution of the film, getting there the first time you watch it, is an amazing experience. Returning to the film knowing what the resolution is perhaps robs repeat viewings of this film of some of the initial chill it so expertly manages to produce when you first watched it. In that way, it almost feels like a folk tale being passed on. It feels like a tale often told. Familiarity does not breed contempt with The Orphanage, because in the telling it is so expert, but it almost gives, rather than it feeling like a rip-off, and that can happen. I watched The Conjuring basically ticking off all the references, all the other films that The Conjuring was referencing, and didn't enjoy it because of that. Here, it feels more in an oral tradition and seems more valid because of that. The setting is delicious. The Orphanage itself, what a building. One of the things European horror cinema excels at is finding really atmospheric, old, real buildings. It's one of the reasons I love Italian horror cinema so much, but European horror cinema, what a building. Plus the gardens, the beach, the caves that get flooded when the tide comes in, the lighthouse. All classic elements here put together in a combination that perfectly works for The Orphanage. And one of the reasons this particular mixture works so well is because it doesn't patronise the audience, it doesn't spoon feed us. It pulls us along with Laura and asks us to make connections, join the dots, solve the mystery as she solves it. It also doesn't insult our intelligence with cheap jump scares. There are scares that would make you jump, but I would say that they're much more meticulously crafted and emotionally judged. It all ties in. There are no cats jumping out of cupboards. Who puts a cat in a cupboard anyway? And that authenticity and dedication to storytelling plays right the way through the film until the very end, when The Orphanage reveals to you what story it is actually telling all along. And whilst upon repeat viewing some of the chills and scares might have lost some of their impact, the destination of the journey has lost absolutely none. It's an absolutely heartbreaking ending, probably more powerful upon repeat viewings than the first time you watch it. My other half was in floods of tears. I was tearing up as well. It does stick the landing. The makers of The Orphanage seem to understand how it all hinges on this one moment. I won't spoil it, I won't talk about it, but the realization of what the entire story sort of spirals around, one tiny parental mistake, not even a mistake, just one moment of human frustration, and leading down this awful series of events. I'm struggling to not give away any plot details, so I'm just going to zip it. If the film's not chilling you or creeping you out, there are a few tweaks here or there that could be made. The character of Carlos, the husband, has practically nothing to do. In fact, she may as well be a single parent. And the film does seem to have more endings than Return of the King. However, that is probably necessary to give the audience the time to sort of receive and process and assimilate the revelation, the information that it's giving at the end. If The Orphanage had ended maybe 4 or 5 minutes earlier than it does, it would have been one of the starkest, most downbeat endings you might ever find in movies. So in short, if you've not seen The Orphanage and you love ghost stories and ghost movies, definitely watch it. If you have already seen it and have loved it, maybe leave it alone and keep those excellent memories of the first viewing of it intact. I'm off now to watch T, but next in this series are our entry for P, Can See You, but You Can't See It. It's a cracker. P is for